Hey up everyone, in today's video we're going to be creating the ultimate UFC card. Now this card consists of everyone who's in the prime. It can be legends from the past, current fighters, and just fights that I think will be bangers and would be very interesting. Now before we get started, a big thank you to this user right here. Sorry I'm not going to say all of that name because it was goggledygook. But thank you for the idea for this video. Guys, if you have any more video ideas for me, let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can make it into a video. Thank you again for the video suggestion and let's get straight into it. Right, so this card's going to consist of 14 bouts, and on the early prelims, we have Daniel Cormier taking on Brock Lesnar. Now, I know a lot of people are like, what the fuck? Why are you doing this? This fight was teased, and I think we all know how it would go, but I'm thinking financially, we need a big blockbuster one to start off this card, and I think Brock Lesnar versus DC would have generated a lot of interest. I believe a video of them two squaring off, I think it did quite well on YouTube from what I believe, and Brock Lesnar's quite a well-known name, and so is DC. And you know, sometimes with these cards, you have to have a banger to start it off with. We had Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt for UFC 300, two big names, and I thought DC, Brock Lesnar, two massive names. Again, we know the outcome of this. DC fucking gets him out of there in the first round. But again, it just gets the card off on a good foot in my opinion. After this, the second fight on the early prelims, we have Khamzat Chimaev taking on Yoel Romero. Obviously, this is prime Yoel Romero. And I've always been interested in this fight. I've always fantasy matched up in my head about this fight. How the fuck would this go? Because Yoel Romero has great grappling, as everyone knows. He's very explosive. And Khamzat is a very fast starter, has great grappling. But I feel like Yoel has a bit more of that dog in him. You know, he's been in 5-round wars. Khamzat seems to gas out and he drops off a cliff in terms of how well he performs in the fight, and I don't think that is the case for Yoel Romero. I think Yoel Romero would win this by knockout. I think he would maybe end up timing a sloppy takedown attempt from Khamzat when Khamzat's a bit knackered. I think Khamzat would win the first round, but he would struggle a bit in the first round, fatigue himself out. Obviously, this fight would be at the middleweight division. And I think in the third round, it would be like reminiscent of when Chris Weidman got knocked out by Yoel Romero. I think that would happen to Khamzat Chimaev if he fought Yoel Romero. After this, we have Tony Ferguson, prime, obviously, against Nick Diaz, prime. This will be at welterweight. Now, obviously, we only saw Tony Ferguson at welterweight once, and he's got an upcoming fight against Michael Chiesa at welterweight. However, I don't think his skill would drop off that much in his prime at welterweight. I think he'll be quite well at that weight. And Nick Diaz, obviously, I was going to go with lightweight. He has fought at lightweight a fair bit in his career at the very start, but I thought, you know what, we'll go with his familiar territory in the welterweight division. So I've gone with Nick Diaz versus Tony Ferguson at early prelims. This is just guaranteed violence, you know, the cardio, the pace of Tony Ferguson, and then the output of Nick Diaz, shot selection, the nice combinations from Nick Diaz would make a very interesting fight, and both of them are very, very solid grappling. I think Tony Ferguson will get a doctor stoppage. I think he'll get a doctor stoppage in the third round. I think he'll cut up Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz has a lot of scar tissue. And I think the doctor would wave it off. And I think it will be an absolute barn burner. That's how I'd go. I think Tony Ferguson will be able to slice him up with a load of elbows. And I think he'll be able to get the doctor stoppage victory. But if it wasn't that, maybe a decision win for Tony Ferguson. After this, to finish off the early prelims, we have Israel Adesanya taking on Luke Rockhold. I've always been interested in this fight because Luke Rockhold, in his prime, yes, he still didn't have the best of chins. However, he had very solid striking, he had great kicks, he had a great roundhouse kick, and he also had really, really underrated great grappling. You know, he used it against Bisping, he used it effectively against Chris Weidman as well. I was actually tempted to Adesanya versus Chris Weidman, but I thought I'd do Rockhold instead because of a trash talk, the build-up, and I just think Rockhold's somewhat of a bigger name than Chris Weidman. And I thought of Adesanya versus Luke Rockhold. This is a hard one because if Rockhold uses up his grappling, this could be a long night for Israel Adesanya. However, I do think Adesanya would have been able to find the chin, but it's hard to say because Rockhold was a big middleweight, And again, like I say, he was a big middleweight. He'll be able to use that grappling against Adesanya quite effectively, in my opinion. However, I do think Adesanya would have found the chin. I think Adesanya, and he would have also chucked a lot of leg kicks. This is a hard one, but I'm going to go with Adesanya by decision. I think he'll touch him up a few times, maybe drop him a couple of times, maybe even get the finish, but I don't know. I feel like Rockhold would do well with his grappling, and then say if it got stood back up, Adesanya gets back to his feet or whatever, then he'll just be able to land some damage against Rockhold and maybe winning the rounds that way. After this, we move to the prelims. We have, to start off, Jose Aldo taking on Anthony Pettis, obviously both in the primes. I would see this in the 155 division. I remember when I first got into MMA, I really wanted to see Anthony Pettis versus Jose Aldo. Anthony Pettis in his prime was the lightweight champion, and Jose Aldo was the featherweight champion. I always wanted to see Jose Aldo moving up to the 155 division to fight Anthony Pettis, and we never got it. Now, how would this fight go? This is a hard one in the primes. Just stand up. I don't think any of them would really use the grappling. I would go with Aldo. I think the leg kicks would fuck over Pettis. I think they'll jeopardise Pettis a lot. And I don't think he'll be able to get as much offense off. And obviously Aldo has great boxing. There was a few cardio issues when it came to in his prime, I would say. But it's a 3-round fight. And I think Jose Aldo will be able to get a decision win against Anthony Pettis. But that would be a great clash of styles, in my opinion. After this, an absolute banger. A guaranteed knockout, in my opinion. It's Joe Prochaska taking on Anthony Rumble Johnson. I think Anthony Rumble Johnson will get a first-round knockout. I genuinely believe if Rumble was in this current era of like heavyweights, he would be the champion. Now, maybe Pereira would have knocked him out, actually. That could have been a thingy. I feel like Pereira would have been the one to give him the toughest test. But other than that, I think he would beat most light heavyweights. He was very fucking good. Had stupid, scary power, you know. I think with how not very good Yuri's defense is, I think it's quite to say his defense isn't the best. And, you know, he eggs people on to hit him and stuff. I don't think that would be smart against Anthony Rumble Johnson. I think once Anthony Rumble Johnson finds your turn, I do think it will knock out Yuri Prochaska. It would be a one-punch knockout, in my opinion. I don't know how long this would last. We've seen Anthony Johnson knock out Glover Teixeira within, 10 seconds. So, you know, I don't think he'll get knocked out in 10 seconds, but I do think he'll get knocked out in the first round. I think Anthony Rumble Johnson gets the first round knockout. After this, a fight... Oh, mate, I would have loved this fight. Peter Yan versus TJ Dillashaw. Now, I would like this as a 5-round fight, but this is just a 3-round fight. All the 5-round fights are on the main card. However, who would win this? A prime TJ Dillashaw against a prime Peter Yan. This would be, oh my god, it would be unreal. TJ Dillashaw, Peter Yan, both very well-rounded MMA fighters. Both have great fight IQ. But I believe Peter Yan would win. I think he has a lot more sting in his shots. And I think he'll be able to drop TJ Dillashaw and get a finish. Now, I do think TJ Dillashaw would have a lot of success against Peter Yan. I think he'd mix it in really well. But I do ultimately think that Peter Yan will be able to get the finish in the 3rd round. I think he'll be able to get maybe even decision. I don't know, but I do feel like TJ got dropped a few times throughout his career, and I do think Peter Yan will be capable of dropping TJ Dillashaw and possibly getting the finish in the 3rd round. After this, we have Demetrius Johnson taking on Davison Figueiredo. I didn't want to put this in the main card because I think it's quite obvious what happens. I think DJ wipes the floor with Figueiredo, and I'm a massive Figueiredo fanboy. But I thought I'd put this fight together because I had to get a flyweight fight on there. It wasn't right if I didn't. And I thought, you know what, let's do DJ versus Figgy. You know, DJ had a great run at the flyweight division. I thought Figueiredo did a great job of making the flyweight division very entertaining and fun to watch again. So I would do this fight, but I think DJ would absolutely wipe the floor with Figueiredo and maybe get a ground and pound finish or decision win. I think I'd side with a decision win a lot more against Davison Figueiredo. Granted, this is a 3-round fight, remember, but I think he wouldn't really get touched that much by Figueiredo. I think his fight IQ is fantastic, and I think he'll just take down Figueiredo and, you know, just get a decision win. I think it'll be a bog standard DJ performance. After this, to finish off the prelims, I've gone with an absolute banger. The only fight what we've seen before. Well, no, it isn't, sorry. We're going to go with a trilogy between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. It's a very safe bet. Who would say no to a trilogy between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier? First 2 absolute bangers. You know, a knockout in the second fight with that head kick was beautiful. I think this will be a great fight. Both of them retire afterwards. This is current Gaethje and current Poirier. I think that would be perfect, especially to go out on the prelims. Maybe a 5-round fight would be fair for this. But I thought just to top off the prelims, you know, you couldn't go wrong with this. And who would win? This is a hard one. Because in the first round against Gaethje, I thought Poirier won that round. Granted that Gaethje was still having a lot of success. Oh, man. I'm going to go with... Fuck, this is a hard one. I'm going to go with Gaethje. I think Gaethje wins the trilogy. But it's a hard one to call, but I think Gaethje would win the trilogy between the two. We then get to the juicy main card. Remember, guys, this is all 5-round fights. And to start off this main card, we've gone with two bad Brazilians. We've got Alex Pereira taking on a prime Anderson Silva. Both Brazilian, both strikers. You got Pereira with that elite kickboxing, that devastating power. And you got Silva with that, I don't know what to call it, that great movement. His head movement was fantastic. He had great leg kicks of his own. And he also had a bit of sting to his shots and the taunting and the great Muay Thai with the knees. This is a really hard one, but I think Pereira would find Anderson Silva's chin, if I'm being honest. And I think he finds it in the second round. I just think stylistically this is a bit of a nightmare because Pereira, I don't know. It's just a hard one. But I do believe that Pereira would find the chin of Anderson Silva and get him out of there in the second round. I think they'll both compromise each other's legs with the leg kicks. I think Pereira will probably get a better job of the leg kicks. I think Silva would taunt him, try and bait him into it a bit, get some jabs off, you know, try and clinch a bit as well to get some knees off and having some success with the knees. But ultimately, I could see him maybe taunting and then Pereira catching him with a left hook and finishing Anderson Silva. After this, we have the two welterweight goats. GSP taking on Kamaru Usman. How the fuck would this fight go? I think GSP wins it, but I'm not 100% confident. It's a hard fight. I just believe that Kamaru Usman does have the better grappling, but I don't think he'll be able to use it effectively against GSP. I feel like GSP will do a great job of nullifying Kamaru Usman's offensive wrestling. And I think he'll be able to keep it on the feet standing, where I do believe that GSP is a smarter fighter and has better stand-up striking. Both have great cardio. This will be a great fight. It could potentially actually be like Colby and Usman, where if you don't even bother trying grappling each other, because it like cancels itself out. We don't want to take the risk. So they just strike with one another. And I think that'll be an absolute barn burner. And I think GSP would get a decision win in a great fight against Kamaru Usman. After this, I've gone with Islam Makhachev going up against Khabib. We all know how I think this fight goes. This is 2020 Khabib against current Islam Makhachev. I think Islam Makhachev would win this fight. I think Khabib's a lot more relentless. I'd say he possibly has the better cardio as well. But again, like GSP, I think Islam will be able to nullify Khabib's offensive grappling. And I think it'll be a lot of stand-up striking, where I do genuinely believe Islam is a much better striker than Khabib. I think the skill gap between striking is a lot higher compared to the skill gap when it comes to the grappling side of things. I think it favours Islam Makhachev in striking quite a bit. His striking against Dustin Poirier, the combinations he was throwing were fucking magnificent and very underrated striking. And I think he'll be able to beat Khabib by decision. After this, we have the co-main event. Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. Now, I had to put 2023 Jon Jones. I was going to... No, actually, we'll do a prime Jon Jones, actually. Prime Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. This is one... We could have got this and it escaped us, which fucking hurts. But I'm going to go with Francis Ngannou. I think he's just so big. You know, he's so big. He showed a lot of better grappling against Stipe in the rematch. He showed that he improved that side of things. And then when it's striking, I just think he would knock out Jon Jones. I don't think he would show the respect to Jon Jones that Cyril Gane did. I feel like Cyril Gane was somewhat starstruck when he fought Jon Jones. Whereas Ngannou, I don't think that would be the case. I think Ngannou would finish Jon Jones. Jon Jones has a great chin, but Ngannou's power, man. I don't have to say much about it. I think he would find the chin of Jones in the third round. I think Jones might do a good job with some of his grappling, especially in the clinch. I think he could do well with in the clinch, but he'd have to watch out for the uppercuts. We saw DC have a lot of success with the uppercuts in the clinch, and I feel like Ngannou would probably use that and throw a lot of uppercuts of his own, sorry boys. And I think he would knock out Jon Jones in the third round. Then, for the main event, Conor McGregor taking on Max Holloway in a rematch. This might let a few people down. Personally, I think you need that big name as the main, and who's bigger than fucking Conor when it comes to name value? No one. So I went with Conor versus Holloway. This is 2016 Conor versus Max Holloway right now at the lightweight division. This would be so interesting. Conor has that great footwork, great movement, great power, great accuracy, great shot selection. And Max Holloway, great footwork, great switching stance, great cardio, great speed, great shot selection, great boxing of his own. This would be a fucking banger of a fight. And I do believe Conor would take the first few rounds. I think he'll land a lot of damage on Max Holloway. Max Holloway got that dog in him, will keep coming forward. And I think Conor would use up a lot of energy in those first 2 rounds, and I think Max Holloway would win the last 3 rounds. I think he'll point to the ground, and I think he'll clip Conor, not knock him out, but I think he'll clip Conor and drop him, and I think he would win. I think he would win a decision against Conor McGregor. And that is my ultimate UFC card. What do you guys think? Some of you guys might slate it, but you got so many fights out there you could possibly make. It's all fantasy matchups at the end of the day. So if you slate it, fair enough. If you enjoyed it, thank you. Let me know in the comments. What would you make of this? What would be your main, co-main? Even list your whole entire card if you want to. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.